Hello, and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. We apologize a bit for starting the show, quite a bit late. Today on the show, we'll be discussing three issues. First, Donald Trump designates Nigeria a country of particular concern over alleged killings of Christians. Two, the coup investigations. We'll also talk about that. And then the third conversation for tonight will be on PDP convention, which has run into the crisis. In the course of the program, we take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. It's important to mention that we can only read names with human names and the read comments with human names and the ones based on the subject matter. I have joining me via Zoom, the master himself, all the way from Anambra, Babajide Koladu Titoju. Good to see you, BK.
Good to see you, Ibrahim. Good to do this with you. And I say a big thank you to our loyal fans. It is because of you that we are here.
Absolutely. Let's start off with the POTUS, who made a tweet designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, citing what the US called thousands of Christians being killed. Meanwhile, the federal government of Nigeria rejected the characterization, pointing out that violence affects many communities, including Muslims, etc. How did you receive this news to start with, BK?
I had suspected that this could happen because before he officially took that decision, this matter was in the news, at least at the realm of speculation. We saw what happened when one American came here. Before then, the United States Senator had been talking about this, saying all sorts of things about Nigeria. And I was worried that if our response was not strong as a nation, that Donald Trump could eventually take this action. Remember, even when our former president, Muhammadu Buhari, visited Donald Trump, he asked President Buhari pointedly, said, "Why are you people killing Christians?" And the then president had to stoutly defend our country. Somehow, they have come to the conclusion that there is a pattern of persecution of Christians, that there is state-sponsored terrorism against Christians in our country.
Like that. When I
So
tested it before, it wasn't like that.
I just felt that this could happen. And unfortunately,
I tested my phone with
our
it.
response as a nation had not been strong enough. I believe that before now, our president should have issued the statement that they just issued, where our president made the point that our country, that what the Americans are saying does not reflect who we are. I believe that that statement, that strong statement from our president, which is very direct, yet not aggressive, should have been issued before now. That position should have been made clear by someone in the capacity of our president. But what we are saying is merely a reaction to the action that have been taken. We should have made efforts to stop this from happening, because it's an embarrassment. In 2023, when some countries were branded countries of concern, on that list were countries like Burma, China, Cuba, Pakistan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Tajikistan, and Turkey. Turkmenistan. That same year, Algeria, Azerbaijan, Central African Republic, Comoros, and Vietnam were placed on the watch list. I do not or did not expect to see my country in this kind of situation. If Trump had done this around 2011, around 2012, I would have said yes, he did the right thing, because at the beginning of the Boko Haram's killing campaign, churches were being targeted. Christians were being targeted. The goal of those jihadists was to cause so much problem in our country to the point that Nigeria will go up in flames. But the effort to start a religious war failed, because in spite of the fact that Christians were being targeted, their churches were being burned. Remember the Christmas Day bomber. In spite of all those efforts, Christians refused to retaliate those killings. And for that reason, they became frustrated and they started targeting Muslims, going into mosque to kill people. So the killings happening, especially in the north central of our country, because that's where a lot of everyone knows that the north central of our country is dominated by Christians. I guess this is where they are missing the point. So when killings happen in the north central, it makes sense to say that yes, a considerable number of the victims would be Christians. Now, with those people being killed, with the Christians, with those communities being attacked, Trump and his people must have come to the conclusion that, oh, these killings in this area, in the north central, were targeted at Christians. But banditry and terrorism, especially in that part of the country, is not really based on religion. A lot of it is tit for tat killings. It stems from years of warfare between farmers and herders, and tit for tat attacks on one another. And when they kill one another in this case, in this way, they find it difficult to forgive one another. So they continue to move from one community to another, seeking vengeance. It is because we have not been able to find a way to reconcile people who had bottled up animosities against one another over the years that we have this problem. So when killings happen in the Northwest, a lot of the targets, and so many killings have happened in the Northwest, in Zamfara. Sometimes the bandits will attack a community and almost completely wipe out the people there. People die in hundreds, even in those places. The terrorism going on in the Northeast, sometimes Boko Haram attacks a community, people die in hundreds. And it depends on the community that is attacked. If it is a community dominated by Muslims, then it's the Muslims that are being killed. If it is a community in the Northeast dominated by Christians, like Chibok, for example, or Garkida dominated by Christians, Chibok dominated by Christians. So there are communities, when the attack happens, it does not usually discriminate against, the terrorists do not discriminate against people based on their religion. We've seen a lot of mosques attacked and people killed even during the early morning prayers in the North Central, especially in Niger State. So, but the people who have misled the American government to think that it is only the Christians that are being attacked means the point that these attacks are not localized in the Christian-dominated areas alone. We see attacks in the northeast, in the Muslim-dominated northeast. So I believe that some of the videos that they have seen that prompted this kind of designation are largely videos from the North Central, where you see a lot of pastors complaining about the fact that communities are being wiped out, churches are being burnt, and all that. So I still go back to the point that I made earlier, that if it was in 2011, 2012 that this happened, then one could say that yes, they were right to respond in the way they have done to the apparent targeting of Christians by terrorists, by the Boko Haram terrorists. But the pattern has shifted, it has changed. The fact that they failed in their bid to trigger a religious war,
that's right,
tit for tat killings between Christians and Muslims, now made them to start attacking Muslims as well. And we've seen
absolutely,
a lot of Muslims killed in the northeast of our country, in Yobe,
absolutely,
in Adamawa, in what's it called? In Borno State. If the attacks are concentrated in Adamawa State, a lot of the victims will be, majority of the victims will be Christians. Because Boko Haram used to control 7 local governments in Adamawa State, and those 7 local governments were dominated by Muslims. You know, and in Borno State, Boko Haram controlled 2. I mean, in Yobe State, Boko Haram controlled 2 local governments. In Borno, they controlled more than 17 local governments at a point, and a lot of those local governments where they were killing people, setting people's houses ablaze, Muslims were in clear majority. So we do in our country there is no officially sponsored terrorist attacks on Christians. Some of the things that I've read, I feel really disappointed. There's no official targeting of Christians. Yet, you have to admit that many Christian communities have been targeted by bandits. Even in Kaduna State especially, in southern Kaduna, many people have been killed. But again, these are people who had years of animosity against one another because of the potential of a military takeover. So I can understand why efforts are being made to douse this. But no doubt about it, largely disgruntled officers, many of whom have failed promotion exams or stagnated on their postings, are people believed to have been contacted by some politicians to talk to the government. Now, that dangerous conspiracy that Nigeria dodged a bullet when that they using internal intelligence gathering tools. But from what we had, there was a desire to shoot and kill prominent officers in the National Assembly, the presidency, and even security chiefs. What we can encourage is let the forensic experts continue to track the accounts linked to political sponsors of this coup, or the coup that was being planned, being consummated. It wasn't eventually realized, but there was a plan in place. From my checks, from some of the facts at our disposal, we have to give kudos once again to the defense headquarters for quickly nipping this in the bud. But they must continue to investigate to find out who and who had a hand in this, who are civilian conspirators, and we must expand the investigation to ensure that no one who had a hand in this escapes the long arm of the law. Nigeria is not Mali. Nigeria is not Burkina Faso. A military rule at this time is not what everyone wants to say. Even Sowore, that people always say, oh, he's such a courageous person, he can abuse anybody. Sowore is already warning that the military will be worse than the civilian because he knows some of the bad mouthing of people that he does over the place. He cannot try it under a military rule. He will be kept behind bars. So we kept behind bars. We survived the military. Maybe I would have been dead by now. My editor, Kunle Ajibade, was jailed over a phantom coup for a story that I wrote. I came down from Kano. I was given the mandate to do the story because of my links within the military. I had story. I was just relaxing at home when they told me they had come to pick my editor. Thank God I was not at work on the day. I would have been the one I picked. Kunle Ajibade remained in jail. It was the Abdul Salami regime that released them for doing nothing. Many people were tortured to death. So Sowore was this, and he's warning that this military will be worse than these civilians that we are fighting. No. So no matter what people may say about him, he does not fear anybody. He knows those that should fear. He knows that no military regime will tolerate the level of physical of the expression of press freedom that our people are enjoying and are even abusing. Press freedom that enables us to lie against even innocent people. Look at what was done to one of the Peace Square brothers. So we don't want military rule, and we must encourage the armed forces, the leadership of the armed forces, to continue to identify disgruntled elements within the forces who may have plans to topple a democratically elected government in our country. You can ask for change, but change simply for the sake of it in the sense of the word. Change just for the sake of it. No, that's not what we want to see. We don't want to move from frying pan to fire. If we must change this regime, we must change the regime democratically. And it is not impossible to change the regime. As I've told people who are jumping up and down and jubilating over defection of governors, I've said repeatedly, even when I met the chairman of the APC, I told him, I said, the fact that governors are defecting to your party does not mean that those governors will be able to deliver all of their states. We saw it in the presidential election in 2023. At least 10 of the states that the APC controlled, they lost it. You can imagine APC winning only 2 local governments in the whole of Kaduna State. So we must keep faith in this democracy. We must believe that within the democracy, we can make change possible rather than thinking that, oh, there is a military that is the best alternative. These soldiers that they themselves are even more corrupt than politicians. Yes.
That's right. Right.
They themselves are more corrupt than politicians, and their eyes are open, their mouths are wide. So let's not kid ourselves.
Right. Let me take some comments.
Let's not kid ourselves.
Let me take some comments on Trump designating Nigeria a country of particular concern. Oluwase Adigun says, America keeps acting like the global referee. Yes, Christians are being killed. But what about Muslim victims of the same violence? They should fix their gun problem before lecturing Nigeria. Grace Wondo says, I've lost two cousins in Plateau crisis. If it takes Trump shouting from Washington for Abuja to act, then maybe the designation is a wake-up call our leaders need. Bashir Sulaiman says, labeling Nigeria a country of concern oversimplifies decades of complex ethnic, economic, and political tensions. This isn't a religion war. It is a governance failure. And Rufus Adebanjo says, let's be honest, the world only pays attention when it fits their political narrative. Where was this concern when IDPs were starving in Benue and Zamfara? Fatima Yakubu says, Christians, Muslims, everyone is bleeding. We should stop defending tribes of faith and start demanding justice. Full stop. I so agree with BKO. On the Coup allegation, Ifeanyi Okpara says 40 arrests sounds less like a coup and more like a purge. We've seen this movie before, label dissent as treason and silent critics. Khalid Danladi says, if officers are plotting against democracy, they should face the law. But transparency is key. We can't trade human rights for stability. Ngozi Mba says, every government in trouble suddenly discovers a coup plot. It is the oldest PR trick in our playbook. All right, let us move on to the last topic for conversation. The main opposition party, the PDP, had planned its national convention for November 15th to 16th, 2025 in Ibadan. But the court order halted the process, and the tensions between factions loyal to the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, and other party elites have filled the suit that stopped the convention. So what do you make of all these, counter and how do they put it? The allegations, the accusations, the fight, and the factionalization or balkanization of the PDP?
You see, I was reading something on Facebook where somebody who's supposed to be a journalist was attacking the judiciary. What happened? There were different cases filed against the PDP convention. Lamido, who wanted to contest for the position of chairman of the party at the age of 77, went to court and told the court to stop the PDP convention from taking place until the matter of what he called his illegal exclusion from contesting is addressed. Now, if Justice Lefu had listened to Sule Lamido's prayers, he would have given an order stopping the convention from taking place. Now, Sule Lamido, as far as he was concerned, the convention should be stopped because the leadership decided to not allow him to take part in the election for the chairman of the party. But Justice Lefu said, no, I'm going to give the respondents 76 hours from the time the motion on notice was filed or served them to come and explain to him why he should not grant Sule Lamido's prayers. I really like that. I like the decision that Justice Lifu took, which was to listen to both sides at least before taking a decision. If he now concluded in the final analysis that Sulamido had been unfairly treated, he could then decide to stop the convention and force the leadership of the party to do what is right. What is right would then mean, okay, the person that you have stopped from contesting, give him a chance, make the field open to people who are free to contest. That is one side. The other matter was brought by some PDP members who argued that the party breached its own constitution by not giving the INEC 21 days notice. He claimed that they did not serve INEC 21 days notice of this convention. Secondly, that the signature of the national secretary did not pass through the notice of the convention. So the chairman alone cannot sign. This has always been the case. So Justice Omotosho then decided that, you cannot hold this convention until you have complied with the constitution of your party. Because INEC ought to supervise the exercise, but the judge affirmed that INEC did not get a statutory 21 days notice. So the judge said, you cannot hold that convention until you have complied with the Constitution. And if they do not comply with the Constitution, you and I know that whatever transpires from that convention is a nullity. The PDP must stop doing this sort of thing to itself. Remember how the National Assembly members from Plateau State lost their positions. They lost their positions because of this same kind of problem. If you conduct congresses that are in violation of the Electoral Act, then whatever proceeds from the outcome of such Congress will not be obeyed. I expect, I'm not writing off the PDP, I'm not writing off the convention. I expect them to appeal, for example, the judgment of Justice Omotosho. If they had fulfilled those obligations and then the judge went ahead and gave a judgment against them, they have the right of appeal. Now, the final part of it is the suspension of key National ESCO members of the PDP. Under Section 58 of the PDP Constitution, a member who engages in acts capable of bringing the party to disrepute, who disobeys lawful directives, or causes disaffection among members of the party is liable to disciplinary action. So now, the National Legal Advisor of the party, Kamaldeen Ajibade San, has been suspended for 30 days. The Deputy National Legal Advisor, Okechukwu Osuala, and the it too has been suspended for 30 days. The National Organizing Secretary, Umar Bature, and the Secretary, Samuel Anyanwu, have both been suspended for a month. So PDP has wielded the big stick. The question people are asking is, why did it take this long to move against people that the party was convinced were working against its interest. What were they doing all along? Why didn't you win the big stick before now? Why did you wait until the convention of your party had become imperiled before you moved against officers of the party that you suspected were blacklegs working against the well-being of the party? So PDP often behaves like a party desperate to destroy itself. Because if you knew some people were out to ensure that the PDP dies untimely, what was holding you from moving against such individuals? Because if the PDP cannot hold this convention, then it is unfortunate. So this is where we are. I wish the party well. I want to see the PDP hold this convention. We need a solid.
Hello, Biko. We're struggling to hear you. Hello, Biko.
So I'm saying that if the PDP is unable to hold this convention, then it's very unfortunate. And I said all along, I'm sure you heard that why did it take them so long to move against blacklegs within their party? We need a solid opposition. I personally would like to see the PDP have a successful convention. And if they must go to court and have the judgment of Justice Omotosho set aside so that they can have their convention, I support them absolutely. And I do not think it makes sense for party members, including Sule Lamido, to go to court seeking to stop his own party from having an elective convention. I don't think it is right. Sule Lamido has been in the party from inception. He ought to know better. Because if that judge had granted his prayers, honestly, nobody will even be talking about those officers that have now been suspended. They will be talking about Sule Lamido as having engineered the suspension of the convention of the PDP. But the judge held back from granting his prayers and said, I want to listen to the respondents first. So that's where we are.
That's right. Let me take some comments on this. Michael Ekong says, so PDP can't even manage one convention, yet they want to manage a country. Now, wow. Salma Ibrahim, I think this legal standoff is good. Maybe now they'll stop treating the party like a private estate and start respecting due process. Ikenna Obiora says, the PDP crisis shows Nigerian politics is about personalities, not policies. Until that changes, conventions will keep turning into court cases. Lillian Okafor says, honestly, I see this as growing pains. Every party goes through it. The APC had its own meltdown too. Internal democracy is messy, but necessary. As with Poston Biko, I don't know whether you agree with Lillian Okafor, on this, saying that APC had its own meltdown too, and that internal democracy is messy, but necessary. So she's very optimistic that the PDP might, eventually find its footing ahead of the 2027 general election.
Yeah, they can still redeem their image, but I had looked forward to this convention of the party, but now the convention is in danger of not holding because they need to set aside Justice Omotosho's judgment. They need to set it aside so that they can proceed. If they do not succeed, and I don't know what Justice Lifu's court, we can't say at this stage what kind of judgment will come from there, where one of the most loyal party members, Sule Lamido, decided to go to court. That he was not allowed to contest for chairman. And that for that reason, the court should stop the process until the determination of his substantive suit. If the court grants that order, where would the PDP be? Where would the PDP be?
That's right. Interesting developments, Bikil. I guess it's about time we call it a wrap on the program. That's our show for today's edition of Issues with Jide. Special thanks to you, Baba Jide Kolaudu, for those certain analyses as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for doing this with me. I say a big thank you to our viewers. We appreciate your loyalty, standing by us through thick and thin. We'll continue to give our best for your sake.
Yeah, as Vicar said, thanks to our audience for keeping our company on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at TVC News AG. I'm also at Ibrahim_Shita. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.
Thank you, Brian.